Heads up to the listeners of the Browns Nation station. If you're looking to show your Browns Nation pride, look no further than brownsnationswag.com. They have all the latest and best fan gear to represent your team. Again, that's brownsnationswag.com for your Cleveland Browns fan gear. Cue the music. It's time to start the show. Welcome to the Browns Nation station. I'm your host, Mark Bergin, joined today by Kevin Sledz, host of the Land Sports Podcast. Kevin, the Browns have a winning record now for the first time since the 2014 season, coming off a 34-20 victory over the Washington football team. Kevin, the Browns are winners for the first time in quite a while.
I know. Can you believe it? It's definitely a good feeling. It's been a long time for sure.
And the Browns entered this game as a 7-point favorite. They cover at home. And Kevin, to me, the big storyline today was the turnovers and the points off turnovers, in the sense that they turned over Dwayne Haskins several times in this game, and it led to favorable field position and then taking advantage with a shortened field, better field position. And to me, that was really the storyline in this one.
Oh, that was definitely the big key. Even the three interceptions and then the big strip sack by Myles Garrett there at the end. That was huge. The defense came up big today for sure.
And with Garrett, too, he's the type of guy where if you're going to single team him, he's going to make plays like this off the edge for this Browns defense. And I like to see them take advantage. And then once they did turn it over, they didn't abandon the run. And that was a concern that I had from an offensive standpoint, just because this is now back-to-back weeks now where we've seen what this two-headed monster of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt can do out of the backfield for the Browns.
Right. And you talk about Myles Garrett. I think the first 2 weeks, you heard a lot of people say, where's the sacks? Where's the sacks? But, I mean, he was double teamed for the most part those first two games. Today, he kind of had a little bit more rain, had some single one-on-one matchups, and he was able to get to the quarterback.
5 takeaways for the Browns, 21 points off those takeaways. And to me, Dwayne Haskins, a young quarterback, he was staring down his receivers time and time and time again, and it was good to see this Browns defense take advantage of that. And to me, it was like, okay, where is the play action, or where he's looking one way and then throws the other, or where he looks off a safety or linebacker? He really seemed to just stare down his receivers. And again, if he's going to do that, you've got to take advantage of that, especially with a young quarterback like Haskins.
Exactly, and they did that today. And they had no interceptions coming into this game, and to have 3 of them, and like you said, I mean, he was staring down his receivers most of the game, and the Browns defense was able to take advantage of that and make plays on the ball. So that was huge.
I was really surprised coming into this game that the Browns were most favored of any NFL team other than the Colts over the Jets today. And I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, that shows kind of the proximity from a big picture standpoint of the week 3 matchups. Again, the Browns were a 7-point favorite headed into this one. The Colts, that line opened at 10. I saw it at 10 and a half. Some had 11. And that was kind of a concern for me, where I was like, okay, the Browns are the second highest favorite headed into week 3, but a lot was at stake here. Again, we mentioned a winning record for the first time since 2014. And the Browns in 2014 were 7-4 at the end of the year, and they lost their final 5 games of the season. It's been a long time since Cleveland's had a winner, and especially considering the fact where Ohio State's not going to be starting for another few weeks here. There's been that void in the state of Ohio this fall early on. Obviously, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to struggle somewhat, but the Browns have a winner for the first time since 2014. That was unbelievable to me. I know this team has struggled at times, but that's got to give this team some hope, the fans some hope, and a lot of the young talent on this roster, from first-year head coach Kevin Stefanski to Baker Mayfield. Cleveland finally has a winner right now, and if you'd have told fans at the start of the year that you're going to be 2-1 headed into week 4 against Dallas, the Browns are right where they're supposed to be thus far into the season.
Oh, exactly. And, installing the new offense with the new coach, new players on the offensive line, skill positions, I thought it might take 6-7 weeks for them to really get going with this offense. But, I mean, the last couple of weeks, they've looked better.
We mentioned the turnovers earlier. The Browns had 5 takeaways. The Browns did not turn the ball over, and so Baker Mayfield snaps his 8-game streak where he's thrown an interception. And I'm going to give some kudos here to OBJ. He had a pass breakup on a pretty bad ball that probably would have been a pick. And, it's funny, Kevin, because in the first half going into the pod, I thought we were going to be talking about early on in the game where Denzel Ward dropped an interception in his hands and the Washington football team goes down and actually scores. And I thought that might be a key play in this one, and that if it's in your hands, you got to catch it. And
Right.
at the same time, that wound up not mattering at all really in this one. But again, the turnovers, and it's not just the turnovers from the defensive standpoint, it's not giving the ball away from an offensive standpoint. Winning the turnover battle, we've seen in this league time and time and time again, what an advantage that gives you from a winning and losing standpoint.
Exactly. And I thought Baker played a pretty efficient game. Didn't make too many bad decisions. Didn't try to force the ball like he did last week with the one interception. But overall, I think he played very efficient on offense. Nick Chubb did his thing. And it was nice to see, 2 straight weeks now, 35 and 34 points. So that's a good sign.
Yes, and that's the first time they've done that in several years. I'll find that stat in my notes here in just a second, Kevin. But Chubb is the first Browns player with 100 yards rushing and at least 2 touchdowns in consecutive games since 1967. And so it was great to see the Browns establish the run. And I love the way that they're utilizing Kareem Hunt as well out of the backfield, both running the ball and passing the ball. On that touchdown pass, that touchdown reception that Hunt had, I love that play where he was lined up next to Odell Beckham Jr. and OBJ generates 2 defenders from the Washington football team standpoint. And they have a one-on-one matchup with a linebacker on the outside in open space between Hunt and the linebacker. And Hunt's going to win that battle every single time. And so it was a really easy pitch and catch, which led to a touchdown for the Browns. I love seeing the Browns from an offensive standpoint utilize their different weapons from that standpoint.
Exactly. And what a luxury it is having two elite backs like Chubb and Hunt, especially Hunt in the passing game, like you said, the way he lines up on offense and just what he's capable of doing in the passing game as well as the running game. It's huge. I mean, not many teams have it. And like you said, the matchups one-on-one with linebackers, there's not many linebackers, if at all, that are going to be able to stay with him in the passing game.
I found that 30-plus point stat. The Browns had 30-plus points in consecutive games for the first time since 2010. Kevin, I'm loving all of these stats where it's like, it's the first time the Browns have done this in several years, but it's a sign of what this team should be. Remember, before the start of the 2019 season, odds makers considered the Browns favorites to win the AFC North. And there were times you looked at this roster on paper where it's like, man, this is a Pro Bowl roster. How can they only be 6-10? And they're off to a great start for the 2020 season. Beating Baltimore in week 1 was going to be a tall task. They get blown out by the Ravens in week 1. Week 2, shortened week, they take care of business against a division rival in the Cincinnati Bengals. And then now they take care of business with an upstart Washington football team. Ron Rivera's in his first year there too. You've got a new head coach with Ron Rivera, and then Dwayne Haskins, a young quarterback. I thought this could potentially be a trap game for the Browns. But again, if you were to tell fans at the start of the season that this team was going to go into week 4 against Dallas with a 2-1 record, I think every Browns fan would have signed up for that.
Oh, without a doubt. And this offensive line has been spectacular. I think they came into the game ranked 2nd in the league, and they played well again today. And Wyatt Teller, I know, was kind of a question mark at the guard position coming in, but he has been absolutely outstanding.
And Chase Young for the Redskins, their number 2 overall pick in the draft, left the game with the groin injury. And then this was, the Washington football team. Sorry about that. Sorry, it's force of habit. The Washington football team. And then 3-time Pro Bowl guard Brandon Sheriff did not play in this one either. So the Browns take advantage from a line of scrimmage standpoint. And a lot of times that's where this game is really played, is in the trenches. And like I said, late in the game, Kevin, I was concerned where it was like, man, if this is neck and neck, are the Browns going to abandon the run? And they did not do that in this one. They kept running the ball. And you see how effective they are. Chubb had 19 carries for 108 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. Hunt had 16 carries for 46 yards. So not quite as good as Chubb, but you see what these guys can do. There was a play late in the game where they had a play action pass to OBJ where it really set things up. And I think when Mayfield's able to distribute the ball to his different playmakers, it just shows you how it opens things up for the other guys. So early on, he was going to his tight ends. He was utilizing Austin Hooper quite a bit. He was also found Harrison Bryant, the rookie tight end, for a touchdown late in the game. But it's awesome to see because they have the skill position players where whichever guy's got the hot hand, you can feed that guy the ball. When a defense adjusts, so if you're running the ball well and say a defense stacks the box with 8 guys, you can then go to the outside to an OBJ or a Jarvis. So you can set up the play action and utilize their tight ends. And then if they want to take away the passing games, the Browns can ground and pound as well as any team in the league.
Exactly. And like I said, when you have 2 elite backs like that, I mean, there's no doubt that's the strength of the offense is the running game. And like you said, when you have to account for Chubb and Hunt, that's going to open up the passing game with all the other skill players they have. And I mean, it's a nice luxury to have. And like you said, you look at it on paper with all this talent they have, it's an elite roster on paper. Now they just have to work on transitioning that to the field and build on these last 2 wins going into next week against a tougher opponent, the Dallas Cowboys.
A huge play in this one too, Kevin, I thought was the interception by Carl Joseph. It really changed the momentum in this one. And there was some concern because he fumbled the ball at the end of his interception return. The Browns did recover it, but that led to a Nick Chubb touchdown on a cutback run. That was a beautiful run. He made several guys miss in the open field. And again, it goes from flipping the field where how much that does from a team standpoint to be able to do that. And the safety position too for the Browns was a bit of an area of concern, just considering rookie safety Grant Delpit is out for the season with a season-ending injury. So it's good to see Joseph do that. A lot of the young linebackers flying around making plays. And again, if Haskins is just going to stare at his receiver, I don't know if the Browns, I don't know if it was something that they saw from like a game tape situation where they noticed tendencies with him, but clearly they had his number. And I'm glad to see that the Browns won this game by 2 scores, because when it was a close game at one point in the fourth quarter, I'm thinking to myself, it's like, how is this a close game considering the turnover discrepancy between these 2 teams? But again, the Browns taking care of business late in this one.
Right. And the big thing too is they've had a problem, as we all know, with the pass defense on the tight ends. That was a lot better today. Obviously, Mack Wilson was back. Malcolm Smith is starting to play better. He's getting a feel for the defense. He's helped out in that area. They had Kevin Johnson back today. Denzel Ward was back for a little bit, had to leave with an injury. But getting some guys back in the defensive backfield and at linebacker have definitely helped in the passing game, the pass defense.
The only thing that really was a little bit troubling was Haskins' connection with Dontrell Inman, and he had 2 touchdowns today before he went off with a wrist injury late. And this was a guy who hadn't scored in an NFL game since December 2018. But again, he goes out with an injury, and then the Browns take care of business from there. But early on, it's like, oh man, is this guy going to expose this Browns secondary? But I think it really shows too when the Washington football team was trailing late, what a pass rush can do and how that can help your secondary from a secondary standpoint. And that's where when guys like Myles Garrett were starting to get after the quarterback, and Sheldon Richardson and Larry Ogunjobi, you see how that makes everyone's jobs and life easier on the back end of this defense.
Right. And I was a little concerned with that in the first half. They weren't getting as much pressure as I would have liked to have seen. But the second half, they definitely picked it up, and it made a big difference.
Another key in this one as well, and this kind of goes back to controlling the game through the run, is the Browns won the time of possession battle as well. 33 minutes and 37 seconds time of possession in this one. And that's another key as well. I don't want to see the Browns get into situations like against Baltimore, where you have to abandon the run. And I talked about this on the podcast after the Ravens game, in the sense that, okay, if you're facing a double-digit deficit, that puts so much more pressure on Baker Mayfield in his ability to try to quarterback and play kind of more of a shootout style. I would rather see them just hand the ball off, and it might be boring at times, utilize the multi-tight end sets that we know Kevin Stefanski likes using. But to me, that's the strength of this team, especially considering the upgrades that they made in the offseason with this offensive line, with the Jedrick Wills in the first round of the draft out of Alabama, with Jack Conklin, the right tackle, who they signed, who helped pave the way last season for the Tennessee Titans for Derrick Henry to win the rushing title and to steal that away from Nick Chubb. And so if the Browns are able to get a lead to where then they can just continue to hand the ball off to both Chubb and Hunt, you see what these guys can do in open space, but you see what they do after contact, breaking tackles, making guys miss. We mentioned the two-headed monster a lot. I think about like a lot of the teams in this league who would love to have just even one of those guys, let alone to have both players that the team can utilize. That is this team's strength. And once you can establish those guys, I know a lot of people have been saying, well, they need to feed OBJ. If you look at OBJ's career numbers, his teams have a losing record when he surpasses 100 yards. And I know he hasn't done that now for probably close to a dozen games. But look, if you can establish the run, get the ball to the other players, you can all go celebrate in the end zone. And then that can lead to the point I made earlier of that key play action pass late in this game where, okay, Washington thinks you're going to run the ball. You set up a play action pass. We know what a great route runner OBJ is. And then he has a one-on-one matchup. I'm going to take him every single time in that. And so that's the beauty of this offense, where it's like you've got two of everything. You got two running backs. You've got at least two tight ends. We didn't even see Njoku, who is out. I know Bryant and Hooper have been playing well. But then you've got Jarvis and OBJ. You've got two of everything. There aren't many teams that can say that in this league.
Oh, no, not at all. And you mentioned the time of possession, and that's huge. And two is keeping the defense off the field, not getting fatigued, keeping them fresh. But like you mentioned with OBJ, he even mentioned earlier this week that he recognizes the talent they have at the running back position and knows this is a run-first team and knows that's going to take receptions away from him. But he also understands that can also open up the field for him as well. So I think he's better understanding this year of what his role is and what he needs to do going forward.
And I look at Mayfield's future with this team. He's in his third year with the team. It's really critical that the Browns continue to win because we know what Baltimore can do to teams. Pittsburgh is now 3-0 after their win this afternoon against the Texans. Yeah. And so this is a very, very competitive division. One of the best in football, if not the very best. I might put the NFC North a little bit ahead of the the NFC West a little bit ahead of the AFC North. But the one thing in the Browns' favor in the big picture standpoint of, okay, can this team make the playoffs for the first time since the 2002 season? To me would be, you have an expanded playoff format this year. So 7 teams from each conference are going to make it in, and sitting 2-1 after 3 weeks through the season. And Dallas has been up and down. We'll see what Dallas does, because it's a Dallas team that's 1-1 headed into their afternoon matchup today. But a team that could very well be 0-2, if not for that crazy onside kick last weekend. But like I said, you're sitting pretty and kind of ideally, in an ideal world, right where you're supposed to be headed into your week 4 matchup against Dallas.
Exactly. This is definitely one of the best divisions in football. Baltimore, Baltimore and Pittsburgh are going to be at the top. Those are the two teams you're chasing, obviously. But yeah, I agree 100%. The Dallas matchup is, like you said, they're kind of a Jekyll and Hyde this year so far. You don't know which Dallas team is going to show up. I mean, offensively, they have great talent. They have a great offensive line. They got Zeke, obviously, at the backfield. Dak Prescott, he's capable of putting up 300 to 400 yards. So yeah, it's going to depend on what Dallas team shows up and what Browns team shows up, and hopefully they can, like you said, you can build off these last 2 weeks and go into Dallas and pick up another win.
One thing I was really encouraged by was Mayfield was only sacked twice in this game, and this was a Washington team that came in leading the NFL with 11 sacks this season. And so they protect Baker Mayfield, a team that really got after Carson Wentz in week 1 with 8 sacks. Not quite as many last week against Kyler Murray, but keeping Baker Mayfield and protecting him, the Browns certainly did that this afternoon. Kevin, kind of like, what is your feeling through 3 weeks of the season? Is this like the first time you've really felt optimism? It's like, certainly we don't miss Freddie Kitchens at all, but the Browns are sitting pretty right now. Like, how are you feeling after this Sunday's win?
I'm feeling good. Like I said, it looks like they're picking up Stefanski's offense quicker than I thought they would. Like I said, I thought it might take 6-7 weeks, but I think they're picking it up a lot quicker. And hey, I think they can only continue to go up from here, hopefully. Like I said, the Dallas game I think is going to be tough. It's a big road test, but just keep building. Keep going strong with the running game. Play to your strength, and see what happens.
And hopefully Denzel Ward's injury isn't overly serious. That's one thing with this Browns team where you look at a lot of the teams in this league that had really devastating injuries in week 2. This team avoids that, at least has so far, knock on wood, because seriously, though, you look at a lot of the top contending teams. I think of a team like the 49ers, where it's like you or I probably would have started if we were in San Francisco for the 49ers this weekend. So the Browns have, for the most part, avoided injuries at key positions as well, something you can't afford. And it's, the best ability is availability is kind of the quote I always use there.
Right. And the defensive backfield was hard hit, like you mentioned, with Grant Delpit going down, missing the whole season. They did get Kevin Johnson, MJ Stewart back today, and the defensive backfield. So that helps. Greedy Williams, I think, is hopefully going to be back next week. Like you said, hopefully Denzel Ward's okay. I love Denzel Ward, love the talent, but unfortunately that's been the issue with him is the injury.
I'm looking at some of the post-game reaction right now, Kevin, and I love this quote from Kevin Stefanski where he's really excited about the Browns being above 500 for the first time since December 2014. And he says, we're just trying to go 1-0 every week. And that's a great mentality. And that's really all you can do. And especially in this week 3 game where I really thought this could be a potential trap game against Washington, in the sense that an upstart team, we don't really know what to expect from the NFC East, considering how bad that division was a year ago. But really exciting. I thought one of the key plays to the game was late. The Browns up 31-20, and Kareem Hunt, that reception he had to get the first down for the Browns, he's channeling his inner OBJ a little bit.
Yeah, that was crazy. And, obviously Mayfield was pressured, kind of backpedaling, just throws it up there. It was behind him. Hunt had to twist around and falling back with one arm. That was an amazing catch. And yeah, he was channeling his inner OBJ there for sure.
I was excited to see Harrison Bryant get his first touchdown too. I'm curious if David Njoku will have any more cryptic Instagram posts or tweets. I know he's been kind of on again, off again. I don't know how much of it's coming from Drew Rosenhaus, his agent, but again, utilizing the tight ends, getting Austin Hooper involved, guy who's a 2-time Pro Bowler before coming over from the Falcons. We finally saw the Browns really utilize him early in this one, and I think it really set the table to establish the run, and then when you need to make plays and throw the ball downfield, obviously Mayfield has had a connection with Jarvis, but I think that connection with OBJ is starting to gel and solidify a little bit, a lot more than we saw last season's. 4 receptions for Beckham on 6 targets. So I always like looking at that. I know a lot of times you might say, oh, well, that ball wasn't catchable for OBJ. Landry had 4 receptions on 4 targets. So you always see a pretty high percentage between Landry and Mayfield. You're starting to see more of a rapport with Mayfield and OBJ now too. And that's really exciting for this Browns team.
It is, and it's huge. And I know a lot of people were kind of down on him after the first week. And I think in time they'll develop that connection. I even myself questioned whether he was a good fit, coming into this year and after that first game. But like you said, it's getting better. He looked good today. Like you said, 4 catches, 6 targets, and just keep building on that. And it's like I said, it's about him understanding his role and understanding this is a run first team, and that running game is going to open up things for him going forward.
I want to give one quick shout out to Andy Janovich as well, fullback they bring in the offseason.
Yeah.
Not the most heralded signing, but again, when you see this two-headed monster and the potential of what that can be if they can keep that rolling, he's certainly helping clear the way for Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and kind of an unsung guy for this Browns team. But again, 2-1 headed against the Dallas Cowboys next weekend. Do you have any predictions at all for that game? It might be one of those things where you mentioned the Jekyll and Hyde earlier. I kind of want to see what Dallas does this afternoon before kind of trying to break down the week 4 matchup between the Cowboys and the Browns.
Right. I'm in the same boat. I want to see what happens this week. Like you said, they've been up and down the first 2 games. So let's see how they do. And going off how the Browns played today, I think we'll definitely have a better idea once we see how the Cowboys look.
Couple more things before signing off here, Kevin, and certainly appreciate you joining the Browns Nation station and our post-game reaction to the Browns' victory over the Washington football team. Pretty cool moment before the game in that they had the first female official and first female coaches going head-to-head in this one, and they took a picture before the game. Browns' Callie Brownson, the official was Sarah Thomas, and then the Washington football team's Jennifer King all coming together. So a little bit of history there too, and it's cool to see for any female viewers, whether you're a young girl or someone who's interested in watching football with your family and friends, to know that that's something that you can aspire to do. Pretty cool moment in this one, seeing those 3 women perform their respective roles for, again, both teams and then the official as well.
Right. That is a big moment. And it's something you're starting to see, obviously. In NBA, there's some female officials and female assistant coaches. Now it's kind of integrating into the NFL, and it's definitely a good thing.
So we will see what happens week 4, Browns against Cowboys. And then I'll say this as far as Washington goes. I'm hopeful that Chase Young can make sure he's not facing any kind of serious injury. I know this is probably a guy a lot of Browns fans were rooting for a season ago as a member of the Ohio State Buckeyes. And so we can see what he's done early on in this league, a guy who's been likened to, say, a Javon Curse or Julius Peppers in terms of the impact he can make from a pass rush standpoint, from stopping the run and just really dominating the line of scrimmage. So wish him all the best. And honestly, too, Ron Rivera, a guy who's battling cancer right now as he tries to coach his young team. This is an upstart team, and a lot of teams that think that could be a bit of a dark horse in the NFC East. And so you never want to wish injury upon another player or another team. And so hopefully they can get healthy there.
Yeah, I mean, Browns kind of caught a break with Chase Young going out today, but I'm a big Buckeye fan, so I want to see him do well. I was looking forward to seeing him play, so I was a little bummed out that he had to leave the game. But yeah, I think Ron Rivera is the right coach there. I think he'll get him turned around. Hopefully, he can help develop Haskins, get him out of his staring down the receiver habit. And another Buckeye, Terry McLaurin, had a couple nice catches today. And yeah, I think they'll be a team for the future. Next couple of years, they'll be pretty solid.
Kevin, I want to give you an opportunity to plug your podcast, the Land Sports Podcast, and then just any final thoughts you have before signing off here.
Sure. We're currently on hiatus at the moment. My co-host work schedule changed a little bit, but you can catch us on Facebook Live at the Land Sports Podcast. We'll be back on air in the next couple of weeks. Also at the Land Sports Pod on Twitter, and we cover all Cleveland sports: Browns, Cavaliers, Indians, and Ohio State Buckeyes, and then pretty much the sports in general.
I don't know about you, but I've been overwhelmed with the plethora and all the different selection that we have, and watching college football really open up yesterday because you had the SEC kickoff, and then the Big 12 ACC's underway. We're going to get the Big 10 back here soon. And then in November, the Pac-12. Last night, it was like, oh my gosh, there's both a Stanley Cup game and there's an NBA playoff game. Like, I can't keep up with it all, but certainly an exciting time for you guys over there, and a certainly exciting time for a lot of sports fans that have been craving this for weeks and months now. And so through 3 weeks, the Browns are now 2-1 as well. But Kevin, thank you so much for joining the Browns Nation Station this afternoon.
I appreciate having me on. It's an honor.
For Kevin Sledz, I'm Mark Bergin. Thanks for listening to the Browns Nation Station. Go give us a 5-star review. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'll have a post-game reaction for the Browns-Cowboys game in week 4. But until then, take care, and so long, everyone.